Howdy do. Today I'm gonna run out of ink. I'm still transcribing The Discarded Image by C.S. Lewis, and I'm using Lamy Pacific ink. The Discarded Image is a book about medieval cosmology, and bestiaries were included in the section that I was transcribing here. And it's pretty amusing. But he makes a good point about how timeless some of the beasts are. For example, dragons. If you look at the Norse/Anglo version of dragons, in 2,000 years, no one has improved on them in a fictive sense. In essence, they guard a treasure they can never use. I wonder what Lewis would think of Robin Hobb's dragons. Speaking of things that haven't improved across millennia, Umberto Eco gave a speech at the opening of the new library at Alexandria about eBooks. This was 10 or 15 years ago, back when eBooks were so scary that publishers decided to ignore them and devalue them as a business model. To dissuade fears, Umberto Eco explained the print book was never going out of style. Look at silverware, he said. There's been no improvement to the spoon for longer than there's been printing presses. We have nothing to worry about. I'm citing this speech from memory. It's printed in an article somewhere. I didn't attend the ribbon cutting, I only read the article. I was wicked bummed out when Umberto Eco died last year. He's one of those figures who make an imprint on history. I remember when Garcia died, another figure who marked history. When Garcia died, I was working with my sister in a dairy bar. And before you calculate how old I am, let it be known the dairy bar was a family business, and it's totally legal for children to work before the legal age, if it's a family business. So I could have been anywhere between the age of 8 to 18. Anyhow, we had the radio on, and the announcer gave the news. Just then a group of deadheads came dancing down the sidewalk, eager to get an ice cream cone, probably to satisfy the munchies. They wore tie-dyed t-shirts and pantomimed licking ice cream to each other. A couple of them actually had Grateful Dead t-shirts on. It would have been the picture of a sunny summer day because they were so bright and cheerful and literally dancing. I didn't know what to do. I asked my sister if we should tell them, and she said we should. When the leader of the group came up to the takeout window, we both leaned out and I said, "I really don't want to tell you this, but Garcia just died." The guy's smile faded and his shoulders slumped. He turned and told the rest of the group, and at that moment clouds rolled in and obscured the sunlight. I asked him, "Do you still want ice cream?" He thought about it for 3 seconds and said, "Yeah." So we took their order, and when I handed them out, I told them to raise their cones in a toast. To this day, I don't know if it was right for me to spoil their outing. Back to eBooks. I remember when eBooks became part of publishers' catalogs, and still people refused to call them books. Not real books, anyhow. I tried to explain to anyone who'd listen that books were around before we divided them into pages and bound them together. They were packaged in scrolls, but they were still books. What did Cicero say about books? A room without books is like a body without a soul. Unless he had codices, he was talking about scrolls. He lived way before the Gutenberg press. And what do you do when you read an e-book? You scroll down. But I get the romanticism behind a printed and bound book. Believe me, for every one e-book I read 50 print books. This is because I can't use an e-reader for more than 12 minutes at a time. The backlight annoys me. Plus, it's less active. At least with a print book you physically shift and turn the page, but with an e-reader you hold it at the same position without moving. Lactic acid city, here we come. Here you see, I'm about to run out of ink. And this time I didn't even see it coming. The ink window had long been empty. And maybe someday I'll do a video that shows how many pages you can actually write after that window's empty. Oh, here it comes. Now I'm struggling. Oh no. Oh. Oh no. It's done. Spent. Now it's math time. The ink I used was Lamy Pacific. It's that aqua blue color. And my pen is a Lamy Safari Choco Black extra fine steel nib. The pen, not the pen, the paper is just plain old Mead reinforced college ruled 20-pound paper, and that's the same weight as good copy paper, and I think it's just fine. The ink did not ever bleed through, and it barely ghosted through. It was quite enjoyable to use because I didn't have to adjust the angle of the pen in order not to let too much ink flow out. It was a decent dryness. Not to say that it's an overly dry ink, but for my purposes, I like a drier ink. And of course it wasn't so dry that it didn't ghost through at all, but for me, I think it worked out just fine. So now the real math. That was just a prelude. The real math is before I started writing, right after I inked up the pen, I measured the nib and the feed with the cartridge after I filled it. And so full, which is before, it weighed 5.51 grams. When I was out of ink, and of course, you're never really totally out of ink. There's always just a teeny tiny bit left in the section or down in the feed. It weighed 4.40 grams. So you subtract that, and in total, I used 1.1 milliliters of ink. And I understand a milliliter is not the same as a gram. But for my limitations, I'm going to say it's milliliters. If anybody has a suggestion on how I can actually figure out the liquid weight, I am open to hearing them. So, with 1.1 milliliters of ink, I was able to write 52 pages. So, to figure out my score, you divide 52 by 1.11 and come out with 46.85. So that's 46.85 pages per milliliter. On average, I wrote 95 words per page. So you take 46.85 pages, multiply by 95 words per page, and that comes out to 4,450.75 words per 1 milliliter of ink. Not bad, not the best, but not bad. I certainly wouldn't avoid using it again. It happens to be a lower score, but it's not terrible. And it also, you can see that on certain times of the day, or certain days, I write bigger than usual. I don't know what that has to do with, probably whatever impetus is already within the movements of my hands. I knew a lady once who her dentist told her that she had to do this with her hands before she brushed her teeth because she was an aggressive brusher. And evidently she was eroding her gums or something because she brushed so hard. So anyway, maybe I should do that before I write to like make sure that I put the muscle memory of my fingers in the same place so that my writing size is more consistent. I don't know. This is not a science. So anyway, now let's have some fun. Part of what I was transcribing included bestiaries, and C.S. Lewis talked a little bit about the pelicans, and that is the pious pelican. Are you familiar with the Pelican brand of fountain pens? I have always wanted one because I love the story of the pelicans. This is an old myth. I guess it's a myth. But it has been adopted by it was adopted by the church. In fact, if you read the full text of Thomas Aquinas's Adoro Te, he has a line in there about the pious pelican. And the pious pelican is the pelican who in nature, when she feeds her young, she pierces her own breast with her beak, and the baby pelicans drink her blood. So that makes her a Christ figure, obviously, from the sacrifice. I once knew an old monk from Ireland who said, "It only would have taken one drop of Christ's blood to save the world, and yet he gave it all." And I can't say the rest of what he said, or else I'll be banned from YouTube. So anyway, I don't know if you've ever noticed on the pelican pen, on their finial, there's an image of a mama pelican with a baby, or I think actually the logo has changed over the years. But anyway, it's referring to the pious pelican. And next time you go into an old church or an old home, even, like when I mean old, I'm talking built in the 19th century or earlier, look if there's any stained glass windows. Look to see if there are any images of the pelican, and know that is brought to you by Catholicism. I love the Adoro Te, by the way. I really like Gerard Manley Hopkins' translation of it, and of course it's a hymn, and that is a hymn I want sung at my funeral. So that is all. Until next time, long may your big jib draw.